Okay, well, it's Monday. I'm not sure. I think it's the 15th, 16th. I don't know. Columbus Day. As Paul Harvey would say, page two. What I've done before turning you guys on is I made a gallon of the brine, which is a mixture of 1 cup of salt, 5 teaspoons of alum, and 1 gallon of water. That's the recipe for the brine. That will go in the jar, and the olives will store whatever in that brine. And then here's the olives that we're going to put in the brine. I have 2 batches, if you recall from the last time. I have this batch, which is a smaller sort than that batch. There's a little bit larger. There's 18 pounds here, 14 pounds here. So we're going to do the larger of the 2 containers. You see, my wife found a couple of these at Marshall's. She found one of these and one that's a little smaller. We're going to use that. She said, I usually do the olives. I usually can the olives, whatever, make the brine and store them in quart canning jars. But she said she'd rather do it this way because in the quart jars, every time you fix olives, you need to fix a whole quart. You got to empty the jar. And this way, she figures she can just take out as much as she wants out of that container and let the rest sit in there. So I'm going to show you how we do that. I'm going to just put some olives in there, and in this case, I'm going to do something I haven't done before. I'm going to put some lemon in it too. I've been looking at olive recipes, and quite a few people put lemon wedges or slices in the brine, and I think that sounds like a nice idea. Most of the ones that I've watched, in fact, the ones that I've watched, they have not used the alum. And I think they use the lemon instead, kind of as a means to keep the fruit fresh, the olives fresh, and obviously create a nice scent and all of that too. The acid probably helps. But I'm using the alum, and I'm going to put a few slices of lemon in there too. I don't think it can hurt. It sounds like it might be nice. So here goes. Again, I'm going to gather the olives out of the container using these. I've had kind of a difficult time this batch. I left the olives, like I told you earlier. I left the olives in the lye soak for 13 hours in one container and roughly 13 and a half, something like that, in the other container. And the batch of little olives didn't seem like it was long enough. Some of them, every now and then you'd get one that was a little bitter. So I ended up having to do another soak for the little olive, the batch of little olives, another like 3-hour soak into in the lye. The big olives, once I started tasting them, the big olives, rarely, but every now and then I'd run across one that was a little bitter there too. So what I did on that, I almost put those in another lye soak too. But what I did on those was I used some salt. I put like 5 tablespoons of salt in that container that's got like 2.5 gallons of water, and I let it sit in there for I think 3 days without changing it. And I've been eating the olives, and they seemed fine. Like I said, they weren't bad. They were right on the edge anyway. And it was only every once in a while you'd get one that had a little bitter in it. So here goes a few lemon slices. Kind of in the middle. This definitely makes it a lot faster than using the quart jars. I would have been on the first quart jar at this point. I think that's all the lemon I'm going to put. I don't want them to taste like lemon. I just want to add the lemon for its effect, whatever it might be. There's a lot of olives here. They taste pretty yummy too. Okay, I'm going to leave them there. Put some brine in it now. Now, the brine I have mixed right here. Let's put this back over here. This area is a little difficult to work because the floor I'm standing on is not flat. This is a crawl space that I have, you might say, developed into a storage area. And when they did this house is on a slope. And when they did this, they didn't bother to flatten this out. So the crawl space is also on a slope. It makes it a little difficult to work in here. I have the shelf and that's about the only two flat places that I have. Anyway, here goes some brine in here. Like I said, the brine's already mixed. I have a gallon of it here. I don't know if it's going to be enough for this container. I think it will. Yeah, it's going to be enough. Now what you need to do with this, when you fill these, when you get to the very top, there, you cover the olives with water, and the last thing you do is put a 1/4 inch layer of oil on top. Doesn't need to be any special kind of oil. There. What the oil does, obviously the oil floats on top of the water. So what the oil does is it creates an air seal. This lid doesn't even have a seal in it, and it's not necessary, because the oil will actually keep air from getting into this brine. So there you go. That's all that's necessary, and that'll last. Like I said, I've had these 2 years, and they're fine. When you open them, they're fine. So that's all it takes. There's your brine solution. They're ready to store. All right, so that's it for now. Good luck on your process when you do it. Thanks for watching. Bye. Okay, well, this is the proceeds of the container that had the smaller olives in it. It was like 18 pounds of olives. And I have to add a couple of little things that I learned along the way. Like I said, this was the first time I added the lemon when I put the olives in the brine. And the one thing I found was that if you put the lemon, you need to put it in the middle or towards the bottom, because what happens when you fill it with brine and you put the oil on the top, if you have the lemons near the top, they keep floating. Even if they're down a layer or two in the olives, they keep floating up to the top, and what they do is they're kind of sticking part way out the oil, so they're breaking that oil seal, that, you know, the seal that the oil is effecting on the top of the water. So what I've done is remove the lemon that was at the top. It's still got lemon. I got lemon like in the middle and lemon towards the bottom, but the slices I put near the top, that doesn't work because it breaks the oil seal. They keep floating and they're part in and part out of the oil. So that was one thing I had to add. The other thing along the same lines as the creating the seal, I noticed that these jars, you notice how they come over, they're kind of flat, and then there's the neck. If you bring the olives up, when you put them in the jars so that they're up at that flat, again, that does the same thing. When you put the brine in, part of the olives is up against the glass, so it's sticking out of the brine, and I'm afraid if it's out of the brine, it's going to oxidize. It might even get enough air to create some mold on that exposed surface of the olive. So I would say when you put the olives in jars like this that are bigger than the neck of the jar, make sure the olives are down below that flat part of the jar so they don't stick out of the moisture, out of the brine. Anyway, so that's all I have to add. I'd love to see comments on what you think of the recipe, if you've tried it, how you've made out with it, and all that other good stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.